As a pastor, husband, father, in light of our current culture, what would be some areas of concern that you think that single women should be watching out for in men today?
I think this could be a long list, but I think more so, particularly for women and even in men or even some Christian men, because there is obviously a trend right now of young men coming to the church. And this is good. By and large, this is a amazing good thing. I remember for a long time it was how do we get the men to come to church? It was the moms, women are that's easy. They'll always come. And then they'll bring their kids too, but how do we get how do we get the men? And then now it's the men are the ones interested. And I keep hearing stories of husbands or dads, and they're like, you know what? I think we need to get back to church. And the mom's like, what, that stuff's nonsense. It's just an interesting cultural moment that we're in. However, they come and they're immature. They need pastoring, they need help. And so there are still character things. They might profess all the right things, which is good. It's a good place to start. But the character needs to develop. That takes time. Christian character does not happen overnight. It takes effect over a long period of time of faithful obedience and submission under rightful authority. And so, a danger um, is that men are trying to assert headship or assert their authority or assert themselves in some kind of way when they're not prepared for it. Their character hasn't caught up to that kind of responsibility yet. And usually, or many times, this can have devastating effects on those around them, on relationships that they have with family members, or if they're married, on their wives, making sudden changes and then lacking the patience needed to bring their wife along with them on this faith journey, right? That's a character thing. The conviction, the belief might all be good, but then the character can spoil anything. I mean, you can have all knowledge, but without love, you're a noisy gong. You're a musical instrument nobody wants to be in the room with when it's being played. And so that's something to look out for. Look out for that kind of immaturity. The other things that came to mind is, anybody that discourages a woman to have that kind of deep and robust relationship with her God. If there is any kind of discouragement of, well, that kind of theological learning, a woman really doesn't, how's that going to help you? Right? That is a very immature way of understanding what Kuyper's talking about, this whole world and life view. It's a doctrine and a life. The other caution I would give is actions speak louder than words. A lot of times it's very easy to just say, well, yeah, of course I believe that. Of course I do. Well, do their steps match, what they say? I think that's, and then the other way too, though, don't, if something they say is a red flag, don't excuse it. Don't say, well, we all kind of goof up on our words sometimes. Like, no, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So that came from somewhere. Don't ignore that. If they said something alarming or something that didn't quite sound right, that came from somewhere. Pay attention to whether or not their opinions, again, we're talking the character level here, which is so important. Pay attention to whether their opinions can be challenged. Not just so much changed, because you also don't want someone who just changes on a dime all the time. That means there's no security in that person. But can they defend their opinion in a loving way? Can it be challenged? Do they perceive every challenge or question to their opinions as an attack or a threat? That's somebody who is insecure, right? They're not totally sure on their foundation. So if you ask a question and they say, you as a woman ask a question like, hey, can you provide some scriptural support for that opinion? And they're like, you reviling woman, how dare you speak such a way? It's like, shouldn't you be able to defend your position? It's obviously, being kind of facetious, but I've encountered people like that where any question or challenge is perceived as an attack. And that doesn't come from a healthy or a mature inner character and inner security, knowing exactly where they stand and why they stand there. So going back to know what you believe, why you believe it. Other concerning things is pay attention to whether or not or how much they whine rather than provide solutions. There's plenty for us to whine and complain about in our culture and the world. But if that's all it ever is, is unhealthy. We should also be thinking about, okay, well, what is the solution here? Does King Jesus say about this? What are the marching orders then? Because just being a whiner and a complainer doesn't accomplish anything. So it's okay to identify problems and identify areas that need to be reformed. But if someone's just a whiner and not a problem solver, or somebody who also thinks about solutions, I'd say stay away. The other thing is if there's any discouragement of community. So whether that is community within the church for all the families in the church, or if it's discouragement of community with other women in the church, or whatever that is. And I've seen this, but discouragement of community, the attempt to isolate, that's not good either. We're supposed to be very active within the body of Christ, and if you don't have any opportunity to obey the one another commandments, something has broken down in that world. That would be just a smattering of things, I guess, to watch out for.